Hi, everybody. I'm Scott,
And I'm Luke.
And I'm Jonathan.
and this is the No Way to Hollywood podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
We're down to 3 now.
3 viewers, not three of us on the couch. It's always been 3 of us on the couch.
That's it. Yeah, we didn't have like another guest that we just killed or something like that. That's not how this went down.
I'm pretty
We had
sure.
3 viewers. They're all us. So thank you, us, for being.
If there's ever a 4th viewer,
We love you too, FYI.
We love you.
if that's coming on too strong, we don't love you. It's fine. Just do whatever.
We love you, Luke. Thanks for watching.
All right. On that note, this is the episode, gentlemen, where we finish up. This is almost bittersweet. The AFI's top 100 list.
You mean it's bitter and it's almost sweet? Like, what?
I'm gonna cry because we won't have anything to do after this.
And the podcast will finally go away. No, I'm just kidding. We'll see what we do next.
We'll switch to season 2.
AFI's 200 to 100 with even more films that none of us have seen.
Oh my. Okay. Well, let's get started. Gentlemen, coming in at number 10 is The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of what? I'm just kidding. I've seen Wizard of Oz. I've seen
Okay,
it.
again, this continues to solidify our case, our hypothesis that these are films that were touchstones of their time, right?
Sure.
Like these are movies that mattered then. Like, would I be like, I want to watch Wizard of Oz? No, because I think I've seen it like once. Okay, but for the time, not only was it groundbreaking in so many different ways, but it was also this like moment of happiness in the middle of a really dark depression for our nation as a whole, right? So it's like if this is a movie that mattered then, and I don't think that it doesn't matter now. It's not one that I'm going to be like, this is a great film that I need to see. But like from a special effects standpoint, this is like the turning from black and white to actually doing color, and they do it in the middle of the movie. Which
is delightful.
So many wonderful things technologically about this movie that make it great, right? And then on top of that, it has a really important part in American history for cinema and all that stuff too. So I can see again why this is on the list. Would this be in my top 10? No.
Why? What's the difference between Luke's top 10 and this, and why doesn't it make it?
Because this is not a movie that I'm like, I have so much fun watching this, or this movie means so much to me. Right, like I can recognize that it means so much to the nation as a whole from a filmography standpoint, right? Which is why it's on this list and quite possibly at this place, right? On the tier here. But like, it's not one that I'm like, I just love watching this film, or this movie like punched me in the gut and made me like feel something, right? Which are the films that are on my lists, right? Like, yeah.
Gotcha, Jonathan.
The Wizard of Oz has been a long time since I've watched it. I think I'm curious about the sentiment that you have for this particular film. I wonder if we watch it, tomorrow, if we would actually find it very good. If we might find more value in it, I think.
I'll be honest, it has a few of those old school musical things that they do that feel a little bit grating or annoying to me. So there are certainly elements of it that I am not appreciative of. And by golly,
what's an old school musical?
well, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the ways that they bring the chorus into it. I mean, the Follow the Yellow Brick Road song to me just annoys the ever living out of me for multiple reasons. But it is very much how necessary is this? We just want a bunch of people singing for no good reason. We're kind of moving the story forward. I think a lot of the character voices they did in the film annoy me. And by golly, if the witches and the flying monkeys didn't scare the bejesus out of me at some point in my life.
Yesterday.
That's what I was going to say.
Earlier today. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. Flying monkeys aren't natural.
Yeah. So I mean, if I'm looking at it from my eye today, I absolutely. But Luke, I think you do bring up a good point, and that's what a lot of this top 100 list has been. Is here are the important movies to film history, and let's be honest, without a movie like this, we don't get to some of the other movies that I enjoy more today.
Well, and at this point in time, I don't remember the numbers. So, but my feeling, if I have any kind of historical memory in my brain for this film, is that like this was the Titanic of its day, where like people went and watched it like 19 times. Like this, like you
Yes.
went a lot to see it. So this was an important movie.
Any other thoughts, Jonathan?
I should probably just watch it again. That's all I'm thinking.
Okay. So that's going to be his recommendation at the end of this episode.
Not necessarily.
Number 9 is Vertigo.
Have you seen that, Hitchcock?
Hitchcock, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't pioneer the dolly zoom, right, for this film? I mean, he uses
That
it.
sounds like the kind of thing Hitchcock would pioneer.
Right. Did he pioneer it in this film? Because it's also in Jaws. Like it's around. He uses it places, but like he uses it a lot in this movie.
I mean, I think it's very much tied. That shot's very much tied to Vertigo,
Right.
I think. So I would be surprised if he
invented it.
did it
here,
there. Yeah.
I don't.
Well, invented, but utilized.
Right. He utilizes it. That's all I remember about this
for
movie.
those who don't know what we're talking about, the shot in Vertigo we're talking about, I'm sure you've likely seen it in some film somewhere. Is it's a combination. I forget. It's reverse. So you're either like you're moving towards somebody and zooming out at the same time, which changes the field of view and how much the background and the character are squished or not squished at the same time, and so it gives you a very strange, the world's expanding, but like you're getting closer to somebody feeling, and or the other direction. So you can be moving away and zooming in. So it all depends on how you want to utilize that, but it's definitely a very strong visual impact shot.
And you use it in Jaws when it's like, oh my goodness, there's the shark. You know, like the realization of what's going on.
They use it once.
In Jaws. They
In
also
Jaws.
use it in Lord of the Rings when Frodo is like on the road early on when the
Nazgul.
the Nazgul are
Ring
coming.
wraiths?
The ring wraiths are coming, and like it's this. He looks down the road, and the road does the. And it looks
Yep.
weird, right? It just looks weird because it doesn't really change, but like it totally changes.
In Vertigo, the character has vertigo, and so he uses it to make you feel vertigo.
Hence the title.
That's what I know
like
about
this.
this film. So it's even having not seen it, I know that about that film. So that's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, this is one of the Hitchcocks that I have not seen. I've seen bits and pieces of it, I believe, but yeah, I don't know what much more to say about something like that.
Well, when you haven't seen it, there you go.
Coming in at number 8 is Schindler's List.
Oh wow, okay. Schindler's List is pretty powerful stuff. I've watched it once, and it still has its marks. I should probably try rewatching it again sometime. But it's a pretty vicious film, as it should be. Absolutely should be. I just got done watching a documentary on Steven Spielberg, and interesting hearing him talk about that era of his life and how making that movie affected him. It's fascinating. It's definitely, I can definitely talk to it as a point in Spielberg's career. It also comes out, I think, in '93. I think he has Schindler's List and Jurassic Park both come out in '93. It's truly the biggest, widest stretch of who Spielberg is. The most serious and most personal film that like Spielberg ever really does, and then like one of the most beloved blockbusters that Steven Spielberg has ever made. Both released in the same year. Anyway, to Schindler's List.
Well, here's another movie where you're taking color and black and white, and you're using them for very strong emphasis.
Yeah,
Right. That's kind of fun.
it's interesting that it's an American filmmaker, right? It's Jewish people, and you're dealing with Nazis in Germany, and that whole time frame. You're dealing with Jews who've been in Warsaw or in other parts of Europe, getting captured and put into concentration camps, and it's an Jewish American filmmaker who is making this movie. And it's interesting that it's top of American cinema. But it's a strong film. It's essentially it's that it's not a documentary. It's not, right? That's the thing. It's not that, but
It tries to be as real as possible.
it tries to get. It's very important to Spielberg to be as real as possible with that film. He made very specific choices in lighting, for instance, that he would not light. He loves. If you know Spielberg, you know that he loves formalism. He loves to be theatrical, to do the Hollywood technique, to be the smooth shot, pretty lit, larger than life stuff that wouldn't be real, but is really pretty to see and really fun and even sappy, right? And Schindler's List, he went the other way. He did, instead of being on dollies and tripods, he was handheld a lot of the film, and he would light Germans and Nazis who were essentially the bad guys. And instead of giving them shadows and the bad guys, instead of letting that happen, he said, no, you light them flat. You light them just like anybody else because they're people. We're not doing this we're not telegraphing who's a bad guy or something here. We're playing the story out. So there's a lot of interesting choices that he makes that are actually very different than the choices he usually makes as a filmmaker. And it is very powerful.
Well, and it's a passion project, right? Like, hey, Hollywood, I want to make a movie about World War II. Oh, cool! Like they're fighting Nazis. Well, no, it's like people dying under Nazis, and
it
what?
is a passion project. But just to be clear, it's actually something that the book came out, and one of the very first studio head producer guys who knew Spielberg when he was really young, still had him and said gave it to him. I think maybe even 10 years earlier, and he said you should make this movie, and Spielberg was like, no. I'm not ready for this. I don't want to do this. And so you got to realize also that this is a passion project, but it's not like I love this passion project. It was a weight on him. It weighed him down. It was the hardest movie he ever had to make, in his own words. And he suffered in a lot of ways during the making of that movie, but it was because he really cared. That's why he's the right person to have done it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, and I mean, it's one of those movies that, I mean, we've talked about it being rough and a bit of a downer, but I mean, that's what that portion of history was. And this is still the one of the good stories to come out of that dark era in time. And yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, if you don't cry during this movie, you have no soul. Bye, Luke. Been nice knowing you.
That's no surprise.
Show me certain anime, I will cry every time.
All right. Coming in at number 7 is Lawrence of Arabia.
Okay, yeah, this is. I mean, when you talk about epics, this movie is big.
It's kind of a quintessential epic.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Of that era for sure.
So you've got this big movie, lots of desert, and wow, shooting in the desert. This is awful. But the match shot, that's very iconic.
Right.
There's some iconic stuff. There's some crazy stuff. The story has some crazy stuff in it.
Yeah.
It does take a long time getting there when it's 3 hours or whatever. So it's a big movie. But again, the editing, you just kind of have to just keep going through it. There's good questions to the editor. There's some good stuff with this. So yeah, it's a big movie.
I don't want to be a broken record here, but in that same Spielberg documentary, Spielberg was talking about how Lawrence of Arabia was one of those films that he watched when he was young that made him want to make filmmaking. In fact, at first he said, it's too good. I can never be a good filmmaker. I'm done. I'm not going to do this. Imagine that. And then he comes back and says, no, he keeps watching and says, no, I got to try. This is really good. And his take on it, and I'm going to trust him because he's watched it far more than I have. I've only seen it the one time just to make sure I knew what I was talking about. But he was saying that his thing that was so fascinating about it was this huge epic war and battle scenes and desert, and these shots are amazing and political intrigue and all this, but it's ultimately a character story. It's a character portrait of who is this person. And that's what stood out to him.
Hence the title.
And Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, it's all, it starts with, it's absolutely a character portrait, and it's kind of fascinating to watch. And there's big moments in it and everything. I don't think it translates, again, the age difference, right? Just the filmmaking technique changing and even the patience of an audience or not even necessarily the patience, but how fast an audience captures information and understands what's happening. So Lawrence of Arabia is slower. It's a long movie and slower. It takes its time. It really lets you settle in on the desert, lets you settle in on what this character just did or what they're thinking about. That's not bad, and that can still be super effective today. But I do think it has a sense of pacing and timing that is absolutely of its era, and not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I think Lawrence of Arabia would be as impactful if it came out today, just because of that.
Well, and there's an interesting moment in the movie where a character kind of does something that goes against the code, right, of the group, and they're like, okay, well, the rule is you got to die, and so Lawrence like picks up a gun and shoots the guy, and even though he's one of his friends, he's like, well, you're broken, gone, and so there's this, there's this, and then it just moves on, like it's this, you just do what you got to do kind of thing, and it's very interesting. Playing that way.
In that film, I will just clarify a little bit. That is after he has saved that man's life. Like, the whole thing is they're doing this impossible trek across the desert. They're all going to die, but they're going to try. One guy gets delirious, has no water, starts to pass out, gets left behind. Lawrence says, I'm going to go save him. He does go find him. He does save him. It's like this miraculous event. And then that same guy he saved, there's this huge thing, ends up like trying to steal something. He tries to steal something. And the code is, you got to die. And it's not Lawrence's code. It's the code of the tribe that he's working with. And so he shoots him and says, I gotta go full throttle on that. And that's, I think that's partly because the movie's is also about Lawrence and whether or not, is Lawrence a great man or is he an incredibly arrogant man? And sort of the savior complex and other things that he has in his mind. So it plays with that as well. You saved him, but you can't actually save him. Are you, what do you really believe about yourself, Lawrence?
Interesting questions. I have not seen this movie yet, so I have nothing more to add. I'm sorry, guys. This is why I'm the worst film student in the world. Sorry, Luke.
He now has 2 points.
Coming in at number 6 is Gone with the Wind.
Okay, Gone with the Wind. I mean, there's like the famous end line, and whatever.
There's the shot.
Cursing for the first time.
Right. But like for me, like that movie is that shot.
It's that shot.
It's that shot. Like
I
don't know what else you're gonna do with that movie. I mean, I know there's other stuff. I know there's like political intrigue. I know that there's like characters and there's corsets and but like it's that shot for me. Like I don't know what else. Yeah.
And to just make sure everyone knows what the shot is.
If you don't know what the shot is, watch the movie and see if you can figure out what shot it is. Okay, no.
Just like you could probably just Google like the
Gone
Gone
with the Wind
shot, and it'll be the one that they show you.
I'll see if I can find a link.
It's in essence starts off with one character coming into a situation because there's been war, and so coming into the situation, and you start backing up and getting higher and backing up, and as this character keeps moving, you reveal more and more of how big and wide and devastating this war is. It's very smart. It's very good. It's the shot as far as we're concerned of the film.
And then it ends with the flag. Like it comes past the flag.
Right.
Like it's got so much in it. It's amazing. I mean, yeah, there's also like, a fire and like other stuff, but like that does not hold as well. Like it's more like, there's a projected backdrop and they're like riding their horses in front, but that shot, like so masterful.
I mean, it's good. I've seen it. It very much is the epic telling of the war story. And one of the things I think I appreciate most about it is it isn't the sellout Hollywood ending that we're probably way used to now, which even to pick on some of these other movies, right? Like Wizard of Oz, happy ending. She ends up back home. Yay.
Schindler's List, happy ending.
It's a happy ending.
No, it's a devastating ending. Even in its happiness, it's devastating.
So, I mean, I don't know many other movies that didn't. I mean, there's more that we're about to talk about, too. So let's just leave it at this, that I appreciate the ending of the movie, and I will leave it at that.
Well, frankly, my Scott, I don't give it.
Are we allowed to say that word?
I mean, we can say it. I don't know if we want to say it.
Coming in at number 5 is Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, I mean, this is the musical to
End all musicals. And
in-
maybe it
in
should
a way,
have ended most musicals.
probably should have ended a lot of musicals, in my opinion. I mean, I like Greatest Showman, but that's because I'm that's a whole other conversation. Singing in the Rain is actually. I do not like musicals. I like Singing in the Rain. I enjoy that movie. It's a well done movie. It's a well done musical. I like the setup of the story. It's kind of an excuse for them to give an ode to musicals in many different ways, but it makes sense within the context of the story, and I found it compelling enough. You know, I enjoy it. It's charming, right? It just kind of gets you in. They have really good dance numbers, and you know, of course, the actual Singing in the Rain sequence is iconic, and so it's
Singing in the rain.
Singing
Haven't we talked about this movie already? Like, I feel like we've talked about this movie already.
Yeah, the AFI has been patting it in every like 20
No,
or
no,
so.
I mean like on the show. Okay, but like, this is the one where like you've got this insane. Like, this is back when it's basically a talent show for these movies, right? Like you're. It's like, hey, we're gonna have somebody sing and dance and do backflips and stuff. Okay, so one of the characters does this big number, which is make him laugh, right?
Mhm.
And he does this number, and he's a smoker. But he's doing this insane amount of like physical comedy, action, craziness, including flips off of walls and all this stuff. And he does that whole sequence. And like, there's some really long, like just super long takes, right? Of him just running around doing stuff, singing and doing all this stuff. And because his lungs are compromised, he ends up in the hospital after shooting that for several days. He's like out. And then the director comes to him and is like, so, we didn't get it. And so he heals up and does it again.
Oh my goodness!
That is
goes
hardcore.
back to the hospital.
Yeah, I don't remember if he went back to. I'm guessing, but yeah, that's the kind of filmmaking stuff where it's like, oh my goodness, people, like, oh.
Well, it's also interesting because the whole story is the silent film transition to the sound is now a part of film story, and so the beautiful actress that everyone loves, it has the most grating voice, ends up being.
What do you mean I can't talk? I can. Everybody talk.
And then there's the girl behind her who's singing for her and talking like this whole thing going down, which is actually kind of funny because I think
no, yes.
in the movie I think there's also in real life there's actually a singer who sings for the character who is the singer who sings for the actress who can't sing and talk.
Wow.
Now it'd be even better if the actress sings for the person singing for her to replace. That would be amazing.
And if
But
they all
Singception is pretty cool too.
sing in the ring. I just want to point out that what is this? I think this is the 50s or when does this movie come out? What year is this?
Let me double check on this for you. 1952.
So you got to realize sound really shows up in 1937 or so, and no one knows what to do with it. It's kind of a novelty, so they start doing things like just people talking really fast. They're not really sure what to do with this whole sound thing. They can't move the camera very much. They have to put a camera in a box 'cause it's too loud. There's also things that come from that real-life event. This movie is taking place during that transition, but the movie is a celebration of musicals. And musicals are kind of the thing that really popularized and really, I think, made sound kind of become a lasting thing. It was sort of the pop culture thing of sound for that era. And it's sort of a celebration of the musical while talking about that era in film history with the transition. So it's kind of a commentary on the recent 20 years of film history, so it's kind of fascinating, and it's also it kind of is the musical to end all musicals in a way, at least in my opinion. So it should have just ended there, and we should have moved on. But whatever.
And this is Hollywood, so like I think
Self-reflexivism.
I believe she was like 18 years old, and he was like 36 or something like that. So like
classic Hollywood.
Classic Hollywood.
I want to go back to classic Hollywood.
Oh no, you did not just say that.
No, I don't. Sorry, I don't. Coming in at number 4 is Raging Bull.
Okay, so yeah, this is a movie that one of my film professors mentioned, and he's like, "This is the movie that brought me to Jesus." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I watched this movie, and then at the end, it pops up and it says, I was blind and now I see. And he's like, I know what it's like to be blind, and I want to be able to see. And I was like, "You?" And then I went and watched the movie, and I was like, "You got that from that film? Like, what?"
Which number on the list is this?
Number 4.
Number 4. Out of all of Scorsese,
Out of all
Raging
Scorsese.
Bull, number 4.
Number 4.
I mean, it is a brutal movie. Like he doesn't pull any punches. But like, oh yeah, that was good. But like, it's like, but yeah,
That's the moment I have to take the microphone away from my face. Luke and his joke.
But yeah, it's mostly just a guy like spiraling and being not a good guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Taxi Driver too.
Right.
Like Taxi Driver is, I personally probably choose that one in a way, but I don't know. It's probably the boxing sequences. It's so stylized, black and white, and every boxing sequence is different. Everyone loves. I don't. I'm not personally super impressed with that choice.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to number 3. Coming in at number 3 is Casablanca.
That's a good movie.
Classic.
Okay, so the first AFI's Top 100 list came out, and Casablanca was number 2. It is now number 3 on the list after a few more years, which saddens me a little bit. There are so many great things about the story of Casablanca and the way it is told on film, and I don't know. This for me is tough to see it falling down the list versus making the pitch for number 1, which I know on a lot of lists out there you actually can find this as the number 1 movie of all time. So, yes, this movie I absolutely love, has a special spot in my heart. Saw it again most recently on the big screen because that whatever program that releases movies and has special tickets that doesn't work with my A-list, did that. So, anyways, this is just a classic movie, and there's so many
Was it a
things about it.
Fathom event?
Yeah, that's the one. Why do I feel like you guys are making fun of me right now?
I'm not making fun of you. I'm making fun of you.
Anyways, this is a great movie.
Yes, it's a great movie.
It's a great movie. You're absolutely right.
I want to go back and rewatch it actually now because I'm like, okay, I know there's lots of really great moments in it, and I'm thinking of only like 3, and I'm like, there's way more than that, so I kind of want to go back and watch it. One thing that is funny, go find the trailer for Casablanca. They make trailers better now. Like, wow. You're like, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, it's an older film, but it's great. And like, yeah.
This is one of those again where I read it more than I have not seen this movie. I need to sit down and just watch this movie, just watch it all the way through. But I've read a good chunk of this film, and it was really good. Like, just the script was really good. It was a page turner. You kept on wanting to know what the next thing was going to be, what's going on with this character, the flashbacks. You have the emotional attachments, the tension. Like, it's all there. It's all there.
See, guys, I can like a movie that has flashbacks.
There you go. It's also interesting to me because this movie, like Tenet, like Tenet is even
People are going
borrowing
in reverse
from
and stuff?
no, they're borrowing like the same kind of ending, right? Like this one is, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, and that's kind of what you're riffing on when you go see Tenet. So like, here is a movie, Tenet, like this big blockbuster modern film, and you're like, yeah, and you're just doing the Casablanca thing.
Well, it's another one of those endings that, for me, doesn't feel like this sellout Hollywood ending, right? This is the ending where he doesn't end up with the girl, and yet it is still the completely happy ending, which is genius in my book. I mean, I don't know how you do that any
Well,
other
I mean,
way.
some bittersweet though. There's some bittersweet there, right?
A little bit.
Yeah. I also really like the Mercury commercial from way back when during the Olympics. and she's getting on the plane, and she turns around, and she says, "Where am I going?" And he turns around.
Oh no.
That's the commercial. That's great.
Oh man. Coming in at number 2, The Godfather.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that is an impactful movie. That's another one that I feel like we spent time talking on about on this show. Like, go find that one. I guess I don't know.
I mean, I did recommend The Godfather at one point in my movie recommendations. So.
Well, there we go.
We've talked about it, but it's fine.
Like, again, but it is a big movie. It's a cultural icon movie.
Yep.
It's a movie that was insanely violent at the time.
Sure.
So there you go. It's on the list. Is it the second bet? Like, should it beat out Casablanca? We've had this.
I mean, it's still a good story. Like it. I mean, it has a lot of good stuff to it. For me, I look at the difference between The Godfather and Casablanca, and both phenomenal movies by any measure. But I'd much rather watch Casablanca again and again and again versus The Godfather.
Yeah, I just don't think The Godfather's. I don't know. Everyone seems to love that movie quite a bit, and having watched it multiple times, I feel like I get it, but I'm also kind of just like, number 2 movie of all time, at least in American cinema. Nah, dude.
So
Nah.
what's the cultural impact, or what's the technology that they advanced, like that put it on this list? Because
it's the gangster movie.
It's just-
Gangster movies
it's
were
a
really
gangster
popular.
movie. I mean, gangster movie. I mean, you've had gangster movies since the 30s. Really, I mean, you've had them for a long time, but nothing as serious and realistic and ultra violent and closer to what reality is than everything else before that was.
I'll give you the count of 10 to get off my property. 1, 2, 10.
Every other gangster movie was Home Alone. No, it was just a lot less involved and serious and nuanced. And Godfather, in a lot of ways, sets up gangster movie motifs and ideas, and it's this family epic saga and this whole thing of the character. Again, it's the epic gangster thing, gangland thing, but with the character portrait being the actual thing happening there. With who is Michael Corleone? Who's he gonna be? He starts off here, he wants to get out, but he ends up becoming more and more the actual Godfather. He's the one who should take the reins. He is and at the same time it's changing him, and now he's not gonna be who he once was, and he's lost love, and it's all there. It's an epic movie. It really is. It's just
Well, and I've watched some video essays which point out the just technological mastery in making the film and the shot choices and that kind of stuff, which I'm like, okay, I didn't pick that up in the 2 times that I've watched this, but watching it, I'm like, yeah, you're doing a good job. You're framing. You're doing a good job technologically with your camera stuff. Like, you're doing a good job with it.
Maybe it's one of those things where it's one of those movies that establishes filmmaking grammar or uses it really, really well. But at the same time, even though it does that, maybe because I'm too used to more, I don't know, sensuous isn't the right word, but more heightened versions of that, more distilled or even more iterative new versions of that, that when I look at the sort of foundational piece, I don't feel all of that the same way that I do with other things that are basically riffing off of that idea and iterating on it. So it's a masterclass in a lot of ways to filmmaking, and I can appreciate that. I guess I'm missing myself the emotional heft that I would want for a number 2 movie of all time.
Right. Well, if you're talking about a masterclass, I mean, getting to what's number 1 on the film, I think.
Yeah, I know where we're going.
Yeah. I mean,
do you know where we're going?
Yes, and but again, I think this is an important part to just, again, we've been saying this over and over again. This is AFI's 100. So they're not even necessarily saying this is the second best movie of all time. They're saying, as the American Film Institute, looking at films and the influential ones, these are our top 100 and saying this one was influential.
Yeah, but you're gonna say Godfather's more influential than Casablanca? Like it just doesn't
Sure.
really make sense.
Yep. Well, moving on to number 1 so that you can all find out what the absolute masterclass is in filmmaking.
You could have looked this up a long time ago and you didn't need to watch this. But thank you for hanging in there.
We appreciate it. Coming in at number 1 is Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane. Yeah, this movie is this one I like. This one is, I mean, it's a little long in places. It starts to feel a little long, but it's not only is it okay. For those of you who do not know filmmaking, do not know film history, here's what you need to know about Citizen Kane primarily as far as I'm concerned. Orson Welles, as director of photography, whose name escapes me at the moment, essentially invented filmmaking language in a lot of ways. Film, like shots and lighting and techniques of how to go from edit from one place to the next. A lot of things that we take for absolute granted in modern cinema, they did it there first, or in combination that had never been done. And they did a whole movie of it. It is a biopic. It is a biopic of a fictional character who essentially was a real person. They were sort of riffing on Hearst. But they do a biopic. They frame it right. The writing's good. They frame it the right way. It's a journalist trying to figure out, the person's died. He said something no one understands. The journalist is trying to understand what's this last statement of this really influential, powerful man. And you got to go through his whole life, all the different stories from all the different people in his life and what happened. And he starts off idealistic and gets more cynical. Again, character portrait. So apparently the great epics of cinema, especially according to AFI, the big movies that have really shifted and changed everything are character portraits with epic backdrops, right?
Sure.
Spanning lifetimes or spanning, a gang war or an actual war, or with a character at its center that you're watching become something else, or understanding why they are the way that they are. That seems to be the ticket for AFI in particular. And I mean, a lot of these movies are really well known.
Well, I mean, if you have a good character, we're assuming that you have a story that's pretty well written, and if you if you're able to make the audience connect to that character and feel that character and understand that character, then you've done a good job of making the film, right? So there is this element of, and I'm curious to kind of maybe explore this another time with you guys. Of that is not our buzzer for the end of the show, I promise. It is one of those things of how important is character in movie making.
Well, it's also interesting to me that the pattern is a bittersweet at best or tragic ending, where understanding the character is to understand tragedy, to understand that they've lost something, that they're not quite what they want to be or what they hope to be. Citizen Kane is the same thing. Citizen Kane ends up being a tragedy of sorts. And again, it does one of the things that I think a really good movie can do, and a lot of these epics do, which is by the time you're done, and not just because it's 3 hours or whatever, but once you're done, you really do feel like you've gone through a journey. You really feel like in the course of a couple or 3 hours, you've really gone from starting here and it was all this feeling to this feeling to this, you've gone so many different places, seen so many different things, felt so many different emotions. You really feel like you've lived the life. You really feel like you've gone on the journey. You fought the war. You grew up, whatever it may be. And Citizen Kane is the masterclass of that. It is the masterclass of how you do that.
Yeah, and I feel like Wolf of Wall Street kind of tries to follow the same kind of pattern, right? Like here's this idealistic person, and then where do they end up? But then also, why do they end up there, and what's their feeling? Wolf of Wall Street is much more cynical in a lot of ways. But also, what's interesting for me about Citizen Kane is you start out with the question, right? Like Rosebud, what's that all about? And you spend the entire film going, what is that all about? And the characters never figure it out.
Which
but
is
you,
brilliant.
as the audience member, get to figure it out. You get to, then. And it kind of, I think that is even more what gives that bittersweet feeling, because you're on the inside track of this person's mind and no one is explaining it to you.
There was a moment when the reveal happened at the end of the movie that, I mean, even the first time I remember watching it, I was literally just like I don't know, like for as sad as this movie is, like a moment of pure joy almost, like deep down, like yes.
Interesting, because I found it very, I don't know, depressing, but like melancholic, or just sort of, it resonates strongly. But essentially realizing that like maybe the happiest time of your life was the very, very first shot I saw you. That's the thing.
That is also the downer of that reality.
Happiest time of his life is when he's a kid, and you see, and that's when you first. So again, that journey, bookending thing. That's this movie is not in the AFI 100, but like Kingdom of Heaven has a similar thing, and lots of movies do this, where you start in one location, you start with one item, you start with one visual thing beyond the character that sort of represents where they are at that time. You go through a whole journey, and they leave that behind. They do all sorts of stuff, whatever that may be. They're vying for things, they're trying for things, you hoping, caring, tragedy, love, whatever. And then you come to the end, and you come right back to the item, right back to the location, right back to the thing that they left, and it has a whole new meaning now. It's a bookend, so you're going back to one, so you feel like you've completed the story in a lot of ways, and at the same time, that now means something else. That now has a resonance, and Citizen Kane does not take a lot of time to focus, if I recall, on that item in the beginning. It's just there, and when you come back around to it, it has a lot more meaning.
Yes. All right, gentlemen, it is time for us to give our recommendation from this list of 10 movies. Just to review real quick, 10 was The Wizard of Oz, 9 was Vertigo, 8 was Schindler's List, 7 was Lawrence of Arabia, 6 was Gone with the Wind, 5 was Singing in the Rain, 4 is Raging Bull, 3 is Casablanca, 2 is The Godfather, and 1 is Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane. If you haven't seen Citizen Kane, just watch Citizen Kane. It'll probably not be your favorite movie. You might be like, "What? That's the number one movies masterclass." I don't care. I don't know how you'll be, but you should just give it a shot and try to remember the entire time you watch it. Just try to remember that pretty much everything you're seeing had never been done before.
Are you going to take Casablanca?
I don't know. If you want to take it, take it.
Let's go with Casablanca.
Which is actually the number 2 film.
In the original list, it was the number 2 film, and I could absolutely make an argument for it being number 1. Yes. So in light of that, I'm actually going to drop all the way down to Schindler's List. If you want a movie that moves you emotionally more than probably any other movie I've seen, this is it for me. I could say similar things about Casablanca and Citizen Kane, but there is just something about it, something about the way they portray the particular main character and his emotions that you just, in that moment when he gets emotional, and this is why Luke doesn't have a soul. For me, it's one of those moments where I become that much more emotional too. Like I can't help it. So Spielberg did a great job with that, and yeah, it's definitely worth watching. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of stuff in there that is tough to watch, a lot, and it is not a movie I would show kids. Period.
Hey, guess what? The Nazis were awful.
Yes, and it is very real. So, great movie. Definitely go see it, but just understand what you're getting yourself into and be ready for it. Well, thanks for joining us this time around, and thanks for getting all the way through the AFI's Top 100 list with us. We will catch you again next time.
Bye.